Hello dear friends of the bass, I'm Toby. This is the Squier Paranormal Rascal bass and I'm going to take it apart. Let's go! Before we take a closer look at the build quality, let me quickly tell you why I bought this bass. I considered buying a short scale bass sometimes, and then last year I went to the Guitar Summit in Mannheim and I met this guy, Ian Martin Ellison, and I was at his clinic with his Waransaku bass and he made a quite convincing case for the short scale bass. Afterwards I had the opportunity to play his personal bass at the Waransaku booth, and while it's really great instrument, it's a bit expensive for trying out the whole short scale thing. So shortly after that these became available at the Fender online store. I always thought if I'd buy it then in this shell pink color, so they became available and I ordered one. This is actually the second one. The first one had a finish crack at the neck pocket, and this one also had a better setup, at least considering the action. The intonation wasn't that good setup. Setting up the intonation on this bass can be a bit difficult because the bridge is very far from the edge of the body. The screws, the intonation screws, are angled upwards from the body, and you have this little ledge here on the bridge, and the screw heads of the intonation screws are underneath that. So it's difficult to get your screwdriver underneath this ledge, and then it's in the wrong angle, so it's easy to damage your screw heads when setting up the intonation. What I found works best is if you loosen the string, turn the screw down and then tighten the string up again. And you have to check if you've got the intonation right, and if not, you have to do it again. So it can be a bit annoying to set up the intonation on this bass. Another thing with this bass is that although it's a short scale, the size of it is actually about the same as a jazz bass. So the shorter scale comes from the bridge, which is moved considerably towards the neck. And this results in some special ergonomics, I'd say. If you have the bass in your lap like this and you try to play it like you would play a jazz bass, your fingers are very close to the bridge, and that doesn't feel good because the strings are very stiff there, and it also doesn't sound really good. So you have to move your hand forward, and then you get a pretty uncomfortable angle in your wrist. So it works, but it's not the best feel. One thing that works pretty well is if you take your fingers, hook them underneath the bridge pickup and then play with your thumb. You can even palm mute like this, and this gets a pretty cool vintage round tone. You can also play with the pick and palm mute, and this is also a cool sound. These are not playing styles I often use on my other basses, so it's kind of cool that this bass makes me play different and makes me try new things. Now let's have a look at the build quality of this bass. Let's start with the finish. The finish is great. There are no bad edges, even on the matched headstock. Very clean edges between the painted part and the clear coat part. Very nicely done. No complaints on the finish. The shaping beneath the finish is not perfect in all places. It's on the back mainly, it's no big deal. But you can see that this is a rather affordable instrument. At the headstock we have the tuners. These are standard open gear tuners. Nothing special. They work fine. Moving down the neck, the fretwork is pretty good. No sharp fret edges. Fret leveling seems to be alright because I can get a pretty low action without fret buzz. Then the fit of the neck pocket is good. It's not super tight, but there are also no huge gaps, and I think that's a good thing, because if the fit is too tight, you're prone to get some cracks in the finish around the neck pocket when the wood is working a bit due to temperature or humidity changes. Then there's one thing that really isn't that good, at least on my bass. These string ferrules, I have two issues with them. The first is they are not really level, they are a bit proud of the back of the body. And the second thing is that they are pretty loose. 3 of the 4 came out when changing the strings, and that's not good because you could lose one of them while changing the strings. I'll tell you about my solution for this in another video. Then let's turn it around. The pickguard. The pickguard, I think it looks great. It's pretty well fitted to the pickups and the neck here and around the bridge. But one small issue is that the screw holes on the pickguard and the body don't line up exactly in all places, and this causes a bit of tension on the pickguard and may cause it to warp and lift off the body in places over time. Underneath the pickguard there is a lot of space, which is great if you're planning on doing some mods. There's virtually no shielding, just a bit of tinfoil on the back of the pickguard, which doesn't do all that much. But since this is a dual humbucker setup with 2 chrome covered humbuckers, you're getting very little noise. The pots don't seem to be the cheapest kind you can get. They look quite solid, but I'm not sure if it's the right choice of pot values for this bass. We have a 500K volume pot and a 250K tone pot, and I think the 250K tone pot isn't the best choice because you're going to lose some treble even if it's fully open. And since these are pretty dark sounding humbuckers, you should try to lose as little treble as possible with the pots. The toggle switch is a standard open toggle switch. The pickups have 4 conductor wires, so you could mod this bass to have splittable pickups. So overall I quite like this bass. The build quality is decent with the exception of the string ferrules and the pickguard. But it feels good, it's fun to play, although it's pretty different from my other basses. I hope you liked this little video. If so, be sure to hit that like button and stay tuned for the next video on this bass, where I'm going to cover some mods. If you have any questions left on this bass, feel free to ask them in the comments. Thank you for watching and see you the next time.